cathedrals and a lot of cool architecture on my way to school. And then once I got there, generally I would have about 20 minutes to do some work or talk to some friends before going to class. And generally each day I had about 5 classes. So I took 6 classes at SYA, but they give you one free period to to get work done so that you can spend more time with your host family, or do longer extracurricular activity and spend more time immersing yourself in the culture. And each of my classes were amazing because I would I learn by doing, like Emma said, which was an amazing way to learn about environmental science and art history while I was there. And then my English class was amazing because we read a lot of books um, written by expats who lived in Paris for a while. And it was really cool to be able to kind of share a bit of the experience that they had while living abroad and kind of connect that to what we were going through. And then generally we would have a break for about 15 minutes towards the end of the day before our last class where we could go for a walk or get a quick snack before our last class. And then after school, people would generally either go to their extracurricular activities or we would go get food together or walk around together. So the community was really helpful in creating a safe place to learn and go through the experience together.
Yeah. And just touching on the last thing that you said there, the community at SYA, it really creates a strong support system. I know it seems like such a daunting and scary thing when you're looking at SYA from an outsider perspective, like, oh, going to a new country, you don't know anyone, new family, new friends, new school, new language, everything is new, which is part of the incredible part of SYA and also kind of what makes it pretty scary. But the teachers, they know what they're doing and they have everything set up to support you. And then having a community of students who's all going into the same situation and are in the same boat as you, you create such a strong friendship and just support system and community with everyone there where you don't really feel like that disconnected from people. You know, if you need help with someone, people are usually really open to helping you and they understand the problems that you're going through, which is a really unique part about SYA that I hadn't really, at least in my experience when I was there a couple years ago, I hadn't really experienced that until going to SYA. And so I think it's one of just the most important parts of the program and one of the most special things that you get to take away from it as well. And Kirsten, do you want to finish off with what made you apply to SYA?
Yeah, so I go to a really large public school, which was a pretty important reason for me applying to SYA. So I do a school with about 3,000 students, and I kind of wanted to experience the smaller class sizes and the tighter community that SYA had to offer because I really felt like that was where I would thrive in the classroom, and also outside of the classroom. I also wanted a bit of a different experience because I was coming from a large public school. I felt like it was a bit overwhelming, but I also, and it was also very high pressure, especially going into junior year. So I wanted something that was a bit more of a different kind of challenge, that would push me in a different way, out of my comfort zone. And that was another really big reason why I applied to SYA.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. All right, and if we want to bring everyone back, we have some time left to answer some questions from the audience. It looks like we have some pre-submitted questions. So safety abroad is one thing that got brought up. So just to briefly give an overview, we do have a police officer that comes to visit each campus at the beginning of the school year to kind of talk about how to stay safe, and just kind of give an overview of best practices and make sure that students are well equipped to handle themselves in a safe manner throughout their time abroad. On top of that, students are always our teachers are always accessible and we have lines to them. And then also your host family is a huge source of safety. So there's lots of points of contact where if anything goes wrong, you have a bunch of people who are there available to help you out. Now, SYA is also, we definitely recommend it for someone who is very mature and comfortable being independent. So there is an aspect of it where you are going to be independent and navigating these cities alone. And if you choose to do independent travel, that is an aspect. But we do have very structured support systems should anything go wrong, which it rarely ever does. So we have these systems in place, but also keep in mind you are going to be independent, and the school puts a lot of faith into you to handle yourself responsibly. Can you speak to the differences between semester as opposed to the full year? Does anyone want to talk about maybe their experience having semester students kind of come in and out for the first and second semester? Maybe Emma, did you have that experience with your semester students?
Yes, we had semester students at the beginning and then they changed out over winter break. My friends who were semester students did love it. I think one of the main differences is language acquisition because, of course, 9 months versus 3.5, 4 months, there's a different level of language. I think the full year students were able to learn a bit more in that regard. But I also know a lot of my friends who were semester students had different reasons to be semester students. For example, I had a friend who had to get back for a lacrosse season or vice versa. Sometimes there are sports constraints or school constraints, but in my experience, they're both great programs, but you definitely get more out of the full year program in terms of language acquisition as well as your relationship with your host family and locals just because of the abundance of time that you have.
Yeah, great. And so just talking on the application end, so our program is called School Year Abroad. So we really do try to encourage students to do the full year if you are able to. Now, the semester program, we definitely have semester students. I will say it tends to be a bit harder with, like you mentioned, the language acquisition. If you're applying as a spring admit, we do have a bit of a higher language requirement for that, just because we want to make sure no one's coming in and feeling behind other students who've been in the host country for a bit longer. So their language level may be a bit higher at that point. But obviously we understand that things come up and a year is very scary, which is why we set up this semester program. So if it's all you can do, or it's all you're comfortable with, we definitely highly encourage everyone to apply to the semester program. But I would definitely urge anyone who is kind of teetering on the fence, push yourself, go for the full year. You get a lot more out of it. And a lot of our students who do the semester also end up wishing they had stayed for longer, because it's a lot harder to leave once you're kind of starting to acclimate and get used to it and everything's so exciting. So yeah, that's just a bit on the admissions end for that as well. Now it looks like someone is asking, yes, about seniors versus juniors. So just again, talking about logistics we have SAT testing sites, and we do have a college liaison at all of the campuses. So seniors aren't going to be behind at all with regards to the college process. You may need to be a bit more self-motivated just because it's going to be difficult to find as much time to complete college applications when you're distracted with your host families and your new friends and so many new fun things. But we have all the same systems set up, so you shouldn't be feel any deficit behind your peers back in the States. We do tend to have the majority of our students are juniors, but we also have some seniors and sophomore students. It kind of depends on the year. Kirsten, I don't know what the ratio was year, but do you want to maybe talk about how the community was still founded and felt with different ages, and if there was any separation or if it just kind of felt like one SYA class for you?
Yeah, so my class, I think there were only a few sophomores, and I don't think there were any seniors. But I think definitely with my class, like it didn't really feel like there was any difference between ages. Like at the end of the year when we were all signing each other's yearbook, I like learned that someone was a sophomore at the end of the year. So it definitely there isn't really like a noticeable difference in the community between different years. I guess you're all just one SYA class, I would say.
Yeah, and that's typically the sentiment that we hear from a lot of people. Everyone goes as an SYA student. There's slightly different requirements that we accommodate for every grade just because we're an accredited US school. So, we want to make sure everyone's going to end up in the same spot that they need to be. So there shouldn't be any problems. It just might be a smaller community of people who are applying to colleges. But that would be only the real difference that I have noticed in the past. How are host families matched with the child? So we send out matching surveys. So you can kind of request anything that you want or anything that you are concerned with, whether that's dietary restrictions, whether you want younger siblings or older siblings. We can't guarantee to match everything, but it's beneficial to everyone to try and get the best match possible. So we really put a lot of effort into making sure that it's going to be as good of a match as we possibly can. And in these surveys, you can kind of put anything. I know a long time ago when I did this, I started talking about wanting a cat because I had a cat at home, and I ended up with a host family who had the same name, who had a cat with the same name as mine. So it can be really anything that you would be comfortable saying or that would make you more comfortable. We can't guarantee any of that, but just the more information, the better, so that we can get these good matches. But yeah, that's kind of the process of it. It usually happens a couple months before departure. So once you're admitted into the program, you'll get that information a few months afterwards, and then the matching process will happen and you'll get in contact with your host family. And then if one of the alumni wants to come back and maybe comment on their experience with their host family matching process, that would be great. Yeah. And do you want to maybe talk about your matching process, maybe some of the things that you were looking for in a host family and how you were paired and how that went?
Yeah, sure. So, I have 4 older brothers, and I said on mine that I would like to have a larger family just since that's what I'm used to. But besides that, I honestly didn't give any restrictions or anything like that. I was really open to anything, and I'm glad I was because I got a really great family, and I have a younger sister, an older brother, and a younger brother within my family. And my sister and I, in particular, got really, really close. She actually came to stay with me for 2 weeks over the summer, and they were just really supportive throughout the entire experience. And I feel like it was a really great match. But I would say just to be as specific as you want to be. I just personally wasn't that specific, but, if you wanna be specific, then definitely say anything you would like to on the questionnaire.
Yeah. So really up to you if you have no preference. If you have any preferences, we just want to create the best match. So whatever you're looking for, that is what we're trying to help you find. I do see, okay, here's a question. How fluent are people in the language going and coming out of SYA? Emma, do you want to maybe talk about your level going in versus coming out, just being in SYA Italy, and maybe what you saw in your peers? Because I know Italy doesn't have the same language requirements, so people come in at very different levels.
Yes, so I was actually one of the few who had a little experience with Italian, very little. I only took Italian 1 before coming. But when I came, I only knew a few phrases. What helped my classmates and I a lot was over the summer, many of us did Duolingo or Babbel or whichever platform you prefer. And that helped a lot with vocabulary. So when you're thrown in, even if you don't know exactly what your host parents are saying, you can pick up a few key words. But none of us were very fluent, but that's where we always had Google Translate. I would hold it up at the dinner table if I really wanted to get something across and I didn't know how to explain it. And also, school helped with that language acquisition because we began Italian lessons and Italian classes right away. And in addition, our classes outside of Italian and experiential Italian were initially taught in English and then they gradually became taught in Italian. And I found that helped because I think it would have been a lot to walk into a classroom on the first day of school all in Italian. So my art history class or my agroecology class, they began in English so I could understand things. And then as the classes really followed our trajectory and as we developed as speakers and as readers, the classes also slowly developed into the language. And then coming out of SYA, I don't like to call myself fluent, but I think I've gained as much fluency as I could during the last year abroad. I am actually currently in taking an Italian independent study at my school that's taught only in Italian. So, and obviously this is with the full year program, but I think you really learn the language very well, and a lot of that comes from the immersion in the host family. I remember I would be learning a specific tense and I would ask my host mom to help me with my homework, and she would give me a high five whenever I used that tense in a sentence. So they want to help you learn, and you can make mistakes and they'll just laugh it off. And I think that element of immersion really helped me with the language acquisition.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much for sharing. So just to quickly note, the other two campuses, Spain and France, do have some language requirements of a minimum 2 years or equivalent outside of that. So they will start day one in your target language, which sounds really daunting, but trust me when I say that people don't come in feeling comfortable with that. Very few people do, at least. So everyone kind of comes in and it feels scary, but that's the quickest and the best way to learn. You start picking up on things really quickly, and the more confident you are to make mistakes, the faster you learn. If you just get comfortable saying, okay, totally messed that up, and then you just move on, try it again and figure it out, you end up speaking so much faster and learning and adjusting to the language a lot quicker. So seems very scary, but it's not. The program is set up for it. So we know what it's like. The teachers are all comfortable with it. If you mess up, it's not a big deal, and you do really pick it up quite quickly. Okay, if we want to move on to the next question. Yeah, so I mentioned it briefly in my presentation earlier. It's usually seen very positively because it shows a strong sense of independence, and we also have very academically strong programs. So the students who come, they try very hard, and it looks good in the sense that you have good classes, you're challenging yourself, you're being independent, you're doing something new and scary. So, and you come out usually with a pretty strong ability to talk about what you're going through and to write about it. So a lot of our English classes, does someone maybe want to talk about, talk your English class and kind of some of the reflections that you may have done? Karsten, did you guys do any sort of reflections in your English class, or fieldwork projects?
Yeah, we did a lot of reflections in both my English class and my experiential French class. So I'll start with the English class. We wrote a lot about kind of what we were experiencing with host families, with language acquisition, and adjusting to a whole entirely new culture, and also connecting them back to books, which I found really important and meaningful. To the class, just because it allowed me to reflect on my experience while also connecting it back to the content that we were reading about in class. And then with my experiential French class, we would do a lot of writing assignments on what we had done for field work the day before. So, for example, one time we did an exchange with like a local high school nearby, and the next day in experiential French, we wrote about our experience at the high school and reflected on that, and did a bit of a comparison um, between the local high school in France and our high schools back in the U.S. So I think that we did a lot of reflecting on in both of those classes that were really meaningful to me.
Yeah, so learning how to write like that is really useful when you have to write college essays, because a lot of the time what these colleges are looking for is an ability to express yourself, to talk about something important. They want to get to know you. They want to get to know your motivations, why you want to do what you want to do in college, and kind of learning how to write like that, kind of self-reflect. That can be super valuable just in, looking at your own applications. And then on the other side, when colleges are viewing them, showcasing this type of independence can be really useful. And you can kind of see the types of colleges that SYA alums have attended, when they're all very strong universities and colleges. So if that gives a bit of a reference to kind of what how it looks on a college application. But unless there are other questions coming in, I think we have time for one more. Yeah, so sports. So we really encourage extracurricular activities. Everyone is required to do at least one, and a lot of the time that's sports. So um, every campus has different sports in the local community that that students are able to join. Sometimes if it's something a bit more niche, you may have to go out and find it, and it may not be available in that country. So that's something to think about. But by and large, we've never had any issues with that. Um, so did any of you guys play any sports? Karsten, do you want to talk on that?
Yeah, so I know a lot of people who played sports, and I also came into SYA having done cross country and track the 2 years leading up to it. Um, and for me, it was really important that I did cross country and track there specifically because I had goals of being recruited to run, and that was a worry that I had coming in. But my host family was actually really helpful in getting me involved with the local club team and allowing me to play a sport while I was abroad. Um, and another thing that was really meaningful to me about it was being able to get to know French students around my age while there and really connect with them and a different group of people outside of the SYA community. This it really made my year to be able to um, form those connections with my coach and my teammates, and I still talk to them um, now, even after I've left. So it was a really meaningful experience to me, and I also knew people who did soccer and volleyball while there. So it's definitely pretty easy actually to do a sport while abroad.
Yeah, all right. Thank you for sharing that experience. And thank you, everyone who took the time to join us today. And lastly, a big thank you to our alumni. Your insight is so helpful for new applicants, and it's also kind of fun to talk about your experience. So feel free to reach out. We have some information in the chat that you can use that email if any questions didn't go answered. Feel free to check out our website and our YouTube. We have a lot of great content there. But I hope everyone has a great rest of your night. Thank you.